Joe Biden wants to give illegal immigrants access to federal housing aid. Joe Rogan goes after the woke leftist mob. And we have a bombshell report from the Daily Wire talking about UFOs. And I have a lot to say about that. Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Before we get into our lead story today, please take a moment right now to hit that like button. It really does help the channel out, and it also helps the YouTube algorithm push my video out there to viewers who have not seen my content or my channel. And if you want to support a new conservative talk show like the Bald Brad Show, please make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, but also the bell notification button so you're notified whenever we go live, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that being said, our lead story of the day comes from our friends over at Blaze Media. It is written by the man, the myth, the legend. Yes, folks, you said it correctly. My favorite, Phil Shiver, and he titles it, Biden administration allows illegal immigrants to access federal housing aid. The Biden administration will not require beneficiaries of a massive federal emergency housing initiative to prove that they are legal residents of the country. Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary Marcia Fudge announced Monday. The department announced last month that it would dole out $5 billion in American Rescue Plan funds to help communities address homelessness by providing affordable housing and services. $5 billion with a B, folks. B, $5 billion. Wow. And how much of that is going to go to illegal immigrants? We actually truthfully don't know, but we know that they're going to end up taking a piece of it, and we'll see why here in a second. But the funds will not specifically earmark for American citizens or otherwise legal residents. Rather, illegal aliens may soon benefit from the money as well. According to the Washington Times, when asked if the administration would implement a policy similar to one pursued under former President Trump to make sure only American citizens receive housing aid, Fudge replied the answer is no, because the Trump administration, Republicans and conservatives, put American first. Whereas the Democrats say they put Americans first, but at the same time, they allow other people that aren't citizens of this country, that haven't paid into the system, or if they have paid in the system, they're going to reap more from that system than what they put in. That's who the Democrats truly care about. It's because once they receive citizenship, that's ultimately going to turn into a vote for them. But again, Biden doesn't care. Biden's spending money up the wazoo. He thinks money grows on trees. I'm not sure if he knows how money is printed, how money works, how the economy works. I don't even know if he knows how trees are formed anymore. But freaking Biden spending what, $1.9 trillion, basically $2 trillion on the coronavirus relief package. He has another $3.2 trillion for infrastructure, and I'm doing air quotes for a reason because only 5% of that's actually going towards what people call infrastructure, like roads, railways, etc., things like that everybody uses. But what does Biden care? It's just $5 billion on top of the $3.2 trillion or whatever he wants to spend. It's chump change. Who cares if non-residents get it? Who cares if they don't pay into the system? It's not a big deal. But hey, we don't have veterans laying on the street with no clothes on sometimes, having to take a crap in an alleyway, or whatever it may be. These people need help. And that's why we ultimately give into systems like this so that we can help them. Americans are very generous and we want to help our own people. And look, we also want to help other people all across the world, which is why we are the most generous nation by far, folks. By far, especially not only the way that we ultimately attribute non-cash things, but also how much money we give other countries. But what I'm saying is that we need to do both. But we first need to take care of Americans first, and then whatever's left over, we could take care of other people. We can't keep going down this road of just giving other people cash left and right when we got to spend our own money here in our own country and take care of things that we got going on here. It goes on to say, we are doing everything we can possibly to take any living person in this nation off the street, she reportedly added. That's kind of posture. Well, you're not really doing that because I live in California, one of the most leftist states in the union, and there's encampments everywhere. And you don't really see this so much. I'm being very clear on that. You don't really see it as bad in right-wing areas, conservative, Republican-ran areas. You're obviously going to see homelessness everywhere, but nowhere it is like in California or these leftist ran states, because they don't uphold the law. They don't kick these people off the streets or take them and move them into facilities that will ultimately support them, help them, and take care of them, whether that's food needs, clothing needs, maybe alcohol or drug abuse needs, mental health, whatever it may be. You have to move these people off the streets and help them out. And that's where money should be going. But these people are just outright bringing full-on furniture out in the streets, full bedding, full tenting. They have lamps out there. They have dressers. Guys, I'm not even kidding. This stuff is nuts, man. They got tents that they're going to hold like 10, 15 people just propped up. Some of them like half on the sidewalk, half into the street. It's crazy. I did a report on how there's a homeless encampment. I believe it's in Portland, Oregon, or it's in some leftist state, where they basically took over kind of the outside of the school, and the parents were pissed off because the kids were coming back, but the freaking city or the locality, the municipality, whoever the heck it was, wasn't willing to move this homeless encampment out, and the parents were kind of concerned about their kids walking past it or walking through it, and rightfully so. Not all homeless people are, mentally ill, but some of them are and might do something to a child, which God forbid something like that were to happen. But it's up to the local politicians to clear out those areas, and they're just not doing it. Case in point, come to downtown LA, walk around for 10, 15 minutes, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But they have no intention of doing this. With $5 billion, really, you think they're going to clean up the United States, the homelessness problem, with $5 billion? You could even do a portion of California, Southern California, hell, LA County with that kind of money. So this whole $5 billion thing is just a scheme to get illegal immigrants into the system to help them pay for whatever they need to pay for. So it's just another way to give money and handouts left and right. The news is sure to spark criticism from conservatives, especially amid the ongoing immigration crisis, as unprecedented numbers of migrants surge into the country illegally in expectation of lenient treatment from the new administration under President Joe Biden, also known as the migrant president. I believe in March, it was somewhere around 170,000 illegal immigrants came into the United States through the U.S.-Mexico border. And then it increased the next month of April. Yes, April. It increased 3%, folks. So it was over 173,000 people. And that was just the totality of all of it for 2 months. They're on track to hit this for over 2 million people by the end of the year. Do you know what kind of money that's going to cost us as a taxpayer? I talk about it all the time. I'm waiting to see studies on this stuff about how much it is per immigrant, right? Even unaccompanied children, how much are we paying for that? This is astronomical. Joe Biden just spending money left and right when he doesn't even need to. He could have just taken care of this and continued with Trump's policies, and we would have never had this issue in the first place. As a result of the crisis, tens of thousands of illegal immigrants have reportedly been released directly into the country, presumably without court dates. And I reported on this. I think it was at the time 11,000 or something like that didn't have possibly court dates, and they were just letting them roam free into the country and just kind of saying, hey, we hope you come back. And they're kind of calling it the honor system. Again, I'm using air quotes because they're not really calling it that, but they might as well call it the honor system, saying, hey, we hope you guys come back. And they're just telling them, get the hell out of here. They're waving them down. Don't ever come back, right? So you got to love the Biden administration's doing great stuff here by putting Americans last and illegal immigrants first. In 2019, during Trump's presidency, the HUD Secretary Ben Carson proposed tightening regulations to prevent illegal immigrants from receiving federally subsidized housing aid. At the time, Carson argued that federal government needed to make certain our scarce public resources help those who are legally entitled to it. Absolutely right. Given the overwhelming demand for our programs, fairness requires that we devote ourselves to legal residents who have been waiting, some for many years, for access to affordable housing, he added, according to the Washington Post. How pissed would you be if you're waiting years for affordable housing and you had an illegal immigrant that was already cutting the line for those that have been waiting years to come into this country, and then they take your spot, right? Then you finally come into this country and you need affordable housing, and then they take your spot again. And the government's totally fine with this, right? The Biden administration's totally fine with this. It's truthfully baffling that you have a leftist idea, you have a leftist narrative that always talks about discrimination and making sure everything's equitable and everything's equal, but it's all okay for people that don't pay in the system to just take your money right out of your wallet and not give back into the system, not help the system, take freaking other immigrants that need affordable housing, or whoever it may be that's an American citizen, just taking their place when in reality they don't deserve it. The ones that pay into the system, the ones that are legally here, have a legal right to those services in the first place. Unbelievable stuff that's happening during the Biden administration here, but it's no shock to us, guys. We've been calling it. We said this would happen, so it's not a shock. It's just frustrating that it's actually coming to fruition, because you have to hold out some hope that the guy was lying somewhat about what he was going to do, right? It was so outlandish that we were hoping that he wasn't going to pull this kind of crap, but he's doing it all. I mean, we thought it would take, 6 months to maybe a year and a half to see some of this stuff to come to fruition? No. First 100 days, he's doing all this shit. I cussed again, I'm sorry. But it's just, that I'm surprised with. The first 100 days, like the guy can't walk upstairs and he's somehow just throwing stuff through. Maybe he knows something about his health that we don't know, folks. Maybe he doesn't plan on being here for the next year. I don't know, but damn, man, slow down a little bit, like, jeez. Goodness gracious. The guy doesn't know how a credit card works or what. The same sentiment, however, is not shared by officials within the Biden administration. Of course it wouldn't be. Why would it? In a follow-up news release issued on Monday, Fudge announced that her department plans to send 70,000 housing choice vouchers to at least 750 local public housing authorities across the country. The initiative also aims to provide some 130,000 households with safe, quality housing. While most of us spent more time in our homes than we ever have, more than 500,000 Americans had to spend the last year either in crowded shelters or sleeping outside, which obviously is very sad to hear. Mind you, some of those people still want to stay out there. They don't want to go to shelters. They don't want to go to these places, even when it's offered. So it's not all of these Americans. Some of them do choose to live, quote unquote, kind of off the grid. It's their choosing. Now, is it right? No. I mean, you don't just sleep on the sidewalk. You don't have a right to do that. You need to go to public housing and, go to shelters and try to get taken care of, and hopefully better yourself. And we have a lot of churches, a lot of Christian, Jewish people, also Muslim, a lot of faiths sit there and offer a lot of help. Buddhists, faiths all across the board in America are absolutely amazing that are trying to help not just the homeless problem, but many other aspects that are going on in American life. It says here, with HUD's swift allocation of this $5 billion in American Rescue Plan funding, we are providing communities the resources to give homes to the people who have had to endure the COVID-19 pandemic without one. So, I mean, it's nice that they're giving this $5 billion to Americans for housing and services, things like that. But the wrong thing is that you know what you're doing. You know that people are going to take advantage of this, and the ones that are going to take advantage of it are the illegal immigrants, because why wouldn't they? They've already taken advantage of the system that's in place by the Biden administration by coming over here illegally. Hell, they just walked over here. If there's actual videos of Border Patrol just helping them out of the water. Just like, come on, folks. Hell, if you go up here to the right, you're going to go ahead and hit the tracks. If you take that 13 miles north, you'll be clear cut full on into the United States. Go over there. If you hang a left, right after that 13 miles, you hang that left, folks. If you go a key, you're going to be right there. There's going to be a help wanted sign. You're going to be taken care of. You're good to go. If you keep going 2 miles north past that, you're going to go ahead and hit some services here for federal housing aid. Don't worry if there's people in front of you in line. Cut in front of them just like you did with all the other thousands of people that want to come to this country legally, and go ahead and get your federal housing aid and those services taken care of, folks. And don't forget, Biden administration helped you with that. We'll see your vote next year because, we want to just hand out ballots willy-nilly left and right. Doesn't matter. We're not going to check for ID. You think we're going to check for ID? Oh, do you? Oh, no. We're not going to check for ID. Actually, when you go for that federal housing, we're not going to check for anything there. It's free. Yeah, it's free. Of course. Are you serious? We're the Biden administration. Of course it's free. Are you silly? Here, you know what? Where's my wallet? Here, take my wallet too while you're at it. It's just everything's just given left and right for free. Who cares anymore? Of course I'm being facetious and a little bit of a knucklehead, but hell, if the Biden administration can act stupid, why can't I act stupid on camera? So there you have it. Biden administration allows illegal immigrants access to federal housing aid. In other words, your nice, hard-earned taxpayer dollars are going to people rather than our vets, rather than American citizens. It's going to illegal immigrants. Now, in other news, we have Joe Rogan in the news exposing white leftist privilege, vernacular, whatever you want to call it. He's basically going after the woke leftist mob. This comes from our friends over at Louder with Crowder. It is titled, Straight White Men Not Allowed to Talk. Joe Rogan exposes true endgame of wokeness. I've seen this and I've also read this ahead of time, and I absolutely agree with it every bit. Usually, as many of you know, I don't read these stories or video clips ahead of time. But I will preface these last two news stories here from Louder with Crowder, as well as the Daily Wire. I have looked into and I have read all of it and seen all of it. But it says here, Joe Rogan is sure to piss off the leftists with easily hurt heinies again this week. He's not giving his opinion on medical issues that big tech says you aren't allowed to have an opinion on. If you remember, Joe Rogan gave his quote unquote a medical opinion on COVID-19 and everybody got all pissed about him, and then he had to come out and clear it up, things like that. But progressive douchebags still tend to hate it when you say obvious things out loud, especially the perma-offended woke twats Rogan puts on blast here. So Louder with Crowder is going hard in the paint here, but let's go ahead and see what Joe had to say.
You can never be woke enough. That's the problem. It keeps going. It keeps going further and further and further down the line. And if you get to the point where you capitulate, where you agree to all these demands, it'll eventually get to straight white men are not allowed to talk.
Right.
Because it's your privilege to express yourself when other people of color have been silenced throughout history. It will be, you're not allowed to go outside because so many people were imprisoned for so many years. I mean, I'm not joking.
No, I know.
It really will get there. It's that crazy. You know, we just got to be nice to each other, man. And there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of this weirdness in our culture, and then that becomes their thing. Their thing is calling people out for their privilege, calling people out for their position. You know, it's fucking crazy times.
Yeah, most definitely. But I do feel like there's...
Look, Joe's absolutely right here. And we already saw an article, we saw an opinion piece that I talked about just last week where Northwestern University says that white people walking on sidewalks is now racist and that they need to recognize their internal racism just because they're walking on the streets or not giving people the time of day, specifically people of color. Mind you, if they're not giving it to people of color, most likely they're not giving it to anybody else around them, regardless of their skin color, because all they care about is themselves rather than the people that they're walking past. They're not looking to give people enough room when they're walking past them because they're probably not aware of it, or they're not socially or cognitively aware in what they're doing. And I said it had nothing to do with racism. Go out to a theme park. I was just at Disneyland yesterday. A lot of people didn't get the hell out of my way, and it was a lot of white people. There was African American people as well. There was Hispanics. There was a lot of other ethnicities that didn't get out of my way. I happily got out of their way. That's just who I am. But I also understand it has nothing to do with racism. That's just how people are. People don't think about those things. People don't think about, hey, there's a person coming up. Maybe I should kind of get out of their way just a little bit, or make sure that we have both enough room. They're like that all the time. So it has nothing to do with racism. But Joe is right here. You know, him saying that it's going to go so far where you're not even allowed to go out of your house. White men are not even going to be allowed to talk or give their opinion or their ideas or anything. Write books. Free speech isn't going to work for white men because they're privileged, because they're racist, because the system ultimately helps them, but it hurts minorities or people of color. There's always things, and we talk about it endlessly on the show, that's targeting white men because of something that happened in the past that we had nothing to do about. But here we are getting attacked once again, but at least Joe Rogan sees the end game of what the woke leftist mob wants to do here. Ultimately, they want to discredit white people. They want to be racist on their end by going and targeting white people. But again, if you're a minority or person of color, you can't be racist. Only white people can, according to the left woke mob. It goes on to say, quick fact check. Leftists don't want to prevent straight white men from talking. Only the ones who disagree with the leftist opinion that week. Absolutely right. This has always been what the left does. They can't win arguments based on the merits, so they try to take away your right to even have an argument. Men aren't allowed an opinion on abortion because of not having a uterus. White people aren't allowed to have an opinion on taxes or healthcare because the president was a black guy for 8 years. No one is allowed to have an opinion on climate change because it might hurt a 15-year-old Swedish girl's feelings. Leftists always have an excuse for why you aren't allowed to disagree with them. After social media made it harder for them to delegitimize opposing viewpoints, the left now needs to delegitimize the people having opposing viewpoints. Why else do you think the left is hell-bent on coming after our kids? The left wants you to shut up and don't. And you see the left, especially big tech, but from the top all the way down, going after conservatives across the board. And we reported on Steven Crowder just got his second hit off YouTube. If he gets hit again, he's done. He's totally off YouTube. And it's crazy how they're targeting him, Gina Carano, other people as well. I'm not going to go in the list of conservatives at this time because I've already reported on it, but they're constantly going after us. They're constantly trying to silence us. They're trying to find any way, shape, or form to get us to be quiet so we don't talk anymore. And, you know, for even the purpose of the show, if you see my very first episode, I said, look, I've been silent for 5+ years. I've been wanting to do this show for almost 6 years, and I've just been too scared of doing it because I don't want to lose my career because the leftist woke mob dominates everything. And they'll find one thing you say, regardless of the thousands of hours you've talked, rather than all the good things you've done in your life. They will find one thing to hone in on, and that one little thing makes up your entire life, regardless of how old you are. Again, say you didn't commit a single sin your entire life. The moment you commit one, doesn't matter when it is, doesn't matter what it was, a little slip up of a lie, whatever it might be, they're going to try and destroy your life. They're going to try and censor you because they don't believe in forgiveness. They don't believe in love. They don't believe in kindness. But these are the same people that will preach those things straight to your face, but they won't act upon it because they are hypocrites left and right. Now, are all leftists like this? No. Are predominantly they are? Absolutely. Democrats tend to believe in forgiveness, but they're kind of shifting further to the left as well. So I want to make distinctions here between left, liberalism, Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, all these labels. I want to be very clear on them. The left are going far, and they continue to go that way. Now, you can only go so far left. You can only hit socialism and communism only so much, right? Which is what they're trying to push into our country right now. Part of that stuff that you're going to see in fascism, socialism, communism is the silencing of the people, but also a certain group of people as well, which is exactly what you're seeing the left do right now with conservative white men, cis white men. So now it's not all white men. I want to be clear, and so does I almost said Joe Rogan, but also Steven Crowder here. He's very clear in saying, look, it's not all white men. It's only the white men that disagree with the left that they're going to target. See, look, if there was a leftist white man that disagreed with me, that's fine. More power to you, man. Go crazy. Heck, if you want to talk, even better. But I'm not looking to silence you. I think you have a platform to talk. I think that you shouldn't be silenced regardless of where you're at and what you say. Go ahead and say it. I think the American people and people in general are able to listen to what you say, go look up what you said, read some books on it, check what you said, check their own thinking, and then make an honest and earnest opinion about it. And be okay with that. I think there's going to be people that even do all those things I just stated and probably go after the wrong opinion. Hey, that's life. But we still have all an opportunity under this country to have freedom of speech, and we should be allowed to have that regardless of our viewpoints. Look, I think a communist should be able to shout in the streets all he wants. A racist should be able to shout in the streets all he wants. I totally disagree with what they're saying, but I think that they have a right to do it. Do I like it? Of course I don't like it. But do they have a right to do it? Absolutely. They have a legal right as an American citizen to do those things. And then I will come on my show and rip them a new one for saying those evil things. If I see somebody that's racist, I'm going to talk about it and say, you're an idiot. I don't like racism. Racism's evil. If you're a communist, I'm going to say you're evil. If you're a socialist, I'm going to say you're evil. If you're Antifa, I'm going to say you're evil. I got no problems doing that. But the left does. The left dramatically does. And so what you're seeing here is the end game of the left, and Joe Rogan's picking up on it, especially as somebody that's a white male. And I love listening to Joe Rogan. I love his podcast. I love everything that he talks about, and I would love my weekend shows to formulate into something kind of like that just on the weekend. But Joe Rogan here, he sees it, and I'm glad that he's calling it out because it's only going to make all the leftist woke mob people that are in Spotify, their heads are going to be spinning. Oh, They're not going to know what to do with themselves. And you know that there's a ton of people that aren't a part of Spotify that are going to hear this, that it's coming out, and you know they're going to flip out as well. So we'll see if Spotify reaches out to Joe Rogan and makes sure that he has to give a correction or some part or something. Who knows what Spotify is going to have Joe Rogan do. And I hope they don't say anything, because Joe Rogan came over here, he got a lot of cash. They don't need to say anything. The man has freedom of speech. Just let the man go. A lot of people went over to Spotify because of Joe Rogan, not because of Spotify themselves. Well, other craziness other than Joe Rogan and the Biden administration, we have a bombshell report here from the Daily Wire. This is by the Daily Wire News, so I don't actually know who the author is, and kudos maybe to them for not putting who the author is, because a lot of people think this UFO stuff is a little nutso. But the title of it is Bombshell UFO Report, U.S. Military Encounters UFOs Every Day That Far Exceed Its Tech Capabilities. Now, I'm into the paranormal, the supernatural, UFOs. That doesn't mean I fully believe it, guys. I'm one of those that I have to see evidence, right? That's where my auditing from being an accountant kicks in, is you just can't tell me something. You have to show me the proof. You have to show me the evidence. That's what I've done for a lot of years. Same thing in doing taxes. Same thing seeing people get audited in doing taxes. Is you have to show me the proof. You just can't tell me something for me to believe it. Again, I need to see it from my own eyes. So is it possible there's UFOs out there? Sure. Now, I don't think somebody talking about UFOs, I don't think they're a weirdo. I'm like, there could be some truth to it. And the more that this stuff is coming out, you're kind of like, holy crap, the Pentagon is openly saying that this stuff is real. That doesn't mean there's little green men driving these things. All the Pentagon is saying here is that it ain't us. Like, high ups in the United States military and defense department is saying this is for sure, unequivocally, without a doubt, not the United States tech. The United States doesn't have anything like this. So it's from somebody else, and it's from China or Russia. We're in deep crap, folks, let me tell you. But it says here, an explosive report featured on CBS News 60 Minutes. If you haven't seen that, go take a look. Ready for your mind to get blown. Featured several former U.S. military officials who talked about what the U.S. government knows about unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, when we were all growing up, they were called UFOs, right? Now, a UFO doesn't mean alien. UFO just means, hey, there was an object that I saw. I'm not able to identify it, so hence UFO. Well, what they did later on was they changed UFO to UAP, and it took the public kind of a little while to catch on to that change, because documents kind of started going a little, they kind of started disappearing, not in the way that we think of disappearing, just kind of like, oh, well, we're looking for UFOs, when actuality you should be looking at UAP is what they should have been looking up. But it says here, the segment comes ahead of a report that the military is supposed to deliver an unclassified report to Congress by next month. Can't wait for that. Former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe said in a recent interview that the findings will shock people because, frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public. Newsworthy quotes from the 60-minute segment, so check this out. A former U.S. military official that led the U.S. government's effort to investigate UAP states, imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly 13,000 miles an hour, that can evade radar, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space. And oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet still can defy the natural effects of gravity, Earth's gravity. That's precisely what we're seeing. And also, I watched a little bit of the 60 Minutes. They're also talking about seeing craft going underwater and hitting speeds in the hundreds of miles an hour underwater. I guess it's slipping my mind what we call, what is it, nautical miles or knots underwater. Forgive me if I'm getting that wrong. But you get what I'm saying, is that these things are freaking flying. And it's not just like, oh, well, how do they know that? They have footage of this stuff, and I'll show some clips in a little bit. But they have footage, all this. Our trained fighter pilots are talking about this stuff. This is nuts, guys. This is probably the most UFO stuff I've probably seen in my life within these last 2 years. And when you have the Pentagon openly saying, yeah, this was us, this is the video, yep, that's a leaked video up from the Pentagon, it's unclassified, we don't know what that is, it is a UAP, we looked into it, nobody's sure, it's not our tech, all this stuff. So this is scary, because if this is going over our installations, which it is, Senator Marco Rubio said that, Pentagon officials have said that, we don't know what this stuff is doing, and they just come and go as they please. So I'm hoping we can find out what this is, because if it's China or Russia, man, we're in deep crap, guys. Like, there's no point in going to war. They'll just kick our ass. It says here, on explanations for what people are witnessing, in some cases there are simple explanations for what people are witnessing, but there are some that are not. We're not just simply jumping to conclusions that's saying, oh, that's a UAP out there, or oh, it's a UFO. We're going through our due diligence. Is it some sort of new type of cruise missile technology that China has developed? Is it some sort of high altitude balloon that's conducting reconnaissance? Ultimately, when you have exhausted all those what ifs, and you are still left with the fact that this is in our airspace and it's real, that's when it becomes compelling, and that's when it becomes problematic. Ryan Graves, a former Navy pilot lieutenant, on how often the U.S. military encounters UAPs on the East Coast, the dude, says every day. The guy says every day for at least a couple of years, they encountered UFOs on the coast of, I almost said on the coast of Earth, on the East Coast. And by the way, they're having the same thing on the West Coast. Again, I live in California. A lot of this stuff and a lot of the videos being captured off the coast of California, about 100 miles off the coast of San Diego. Graves, on what he thinks the objects are, I would say, the highest probability is it's a threat observation program. Chris Mellon served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence for Presidents Clinton and George Bush, and was on the staff of the Senate Intelligence Committee. These vehicles seem to have unlimited loiter time, which we don't have. We're limited in terms of altitude. It's hard to design something that functions well at ground level that can go 60,000 to 80,000 feet and then drop down to the deck or drop down to 20,000 feet. And it's like a straight vertical line in seconds. Then the acceleration is beyond anything, far beyond anything that we are capable of. There's nothing we could build that would be strong enough to endure that kind of force and acceleration. So they're talking about the G-forces. And there was a case off of the Nimitz, I believe, in like 04, 05 or something like that, where they caught a craft. And by the way, the pilots, 4 United States trained pilots, one of them, I believe, was a captain. Don't quote me on that. But saw it themselves with their own eyes. They went after it. And they said on radar, this thing went from like 80,000 feet to like sea level in a span of like a second. Okay, so this stuff is nuts. And I'm just bringing it to your guys' attention. Feel free to check all this stuff out. But here's some video clips of some of this UFO that's captured by our United States military.
Took off, booking it.
Break Omaha, pick me kid, Rafael Peralta, pass ability to launch helo ASAP.
Splash to get bearing range. Sure. You got 2 winds, 3 knots. Keep going, bro. We're making 10, so we could probably bring that 35 relative.
Windy as fuck up now.
Sir.
Yeah, I'll bring it down.
We got a lot of white water out there, so 6-foot swells. Whoa, it's getting close.
Yeah, we have 31 knots sustained wind, topside, gust of 40.
Whoa, splashed. Mark bearing and range.
A Navy aircrew struggles to lock on to a fast-moving object off the U.S. Atlantic coast in 2015. Recently released images may not convince UFO skeptics, but the Pentagon admits it doesn't know what in the world this is. Or this. Or this.
So as you can see, this stuff is pretty nuts. I mean, now is it orange, green, yellow man, alien beings? I have no idea. All I know is that, look, I care about our national security just like Marco Rubio does. And when these things are flying over places that they're not allowed to fly over and we can't do anything about it because they either go too fast, or when we try to engage them, they just take off or just disappear altogether, that, who knows what it could be again, and we need to find out. And for somebody to say, oh, well, I don't believe that stuff, you guys, these are trained pilots, okay? I almost tried to go into the Air Force myself. I didn't go in. I actually walked into the recruitment center. The dude wasn't there. He was on lunch, and I just took it as a sign from God that I wasn't supposed to join the military. But I have talked to fighter pilots while I was trying to ultimately go into recruitment and do all these things. That's for a story of another time. But what I'm saying is they're not going to allow a dumbass to fly a 20-something million plus dollar fighter pilot plane, jet, whatever you want to call it, F-22, a Raptor. Doesn't matter what the hell the jet is. They're not going to allow some idiot to fly a jet like that. Okay, so these guys aren't dumb. They're well trained. They got a lot of hours, and they're all seeing this crap. So it's not like just one is, and the guy's like cross-eyed, going, I just saw an alien fly right by me. Right? These guys are smart. Again, they're not idiots. Okay, so you have to take their stories and what they've seen. And when you got freaking fighter pilots saying, yeah, I saw it. I went after one, couldn't catch it, had no wings on it, had no exhaust on it, had no like basically heat signature. It left my camera, which is virtually impossible to do. So, you know, the stuff we have to take seriously again. And I hope I'm not sounding crazy here. I just find it truly fascinating that there might be a technology out there that we haven't discovered yet from maybe another civilization. Who knows what the heck? Truthfully, again, I just find it interesting because I love paranormal stuff. That's why I love Joe Rogan, because he talks about a lot of this stuff and I find it fascinating. Like, for example, I read Grant Hancock, and so a lot of his stuff is pre-civilization stuff, and a lot of scientists think his crap's crazy, but he has evidence to prove some of this stuff. So it is fascinating, it is interesting, but we have a bombshell UFO report. U.S. military encounters UFOs every day that far exceed its tech capabilities. I will keep you updated with this UFO stuff because they do have a report coming out next month. And as always, I'll keep you updated on what is going on at the U.S.-Mexico border here and with everything with the Biden administration, just spending money up the wazoo, just handing out money to illegal immigrants. But folks, that is all the news I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining the Bald Brad Show. Hey, and look, I looked at the data. A lot of you aren't subscribed, so please make sure you hit the subscribe button. It really does help the channel. It helps support me, and also make sure you hit that like button right now before you end. That way you can support the channel. It doesn't cost any money whatsoever. It's just a simple click, and it really does help push my video out there to viewers who have not seen the Bald Brad Show. And with that being said, folks, I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you tomorrow here on the Bald Brad Show.